Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Monday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers understand and complete the assignment in Sunday's win over New Orleans, but their teacher is left unimpressed. We'll explain next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one is always free, never behind a paywall, and that is perhaps why the Locked On Podcast Network is the number one sports podcast network in any known universe. I'm presuming the unknown ones too, just because how are you going to beat this? So maybe you're one of the people who gets the show on Apple. Maybe you get it through Spotify, on YouTube. However you do it, we certainly appreciate it. And everybody is chit-chatting now about the 133-121 win over the New Orleans Pelicans on Sunday night, a game, Andy, in which the Lakers got out to a huge lead in the first quarter. Never really threatened to get to lose it, but nobody's going to say they played well, including the coach and the players.
They played very well in the first quarter of this game. They scored 46 points. It is a franchise record for points in a quarter. They scored 77 points in the first half, which ties a season high for points in a half. But you will note that the drop-off from 77 minus 46, that is 27. They started losing some steam offensively. They absolutely began losing steam defensively. It was interesting. And when they went into halftime, Stu Lance, I don't know, maybe a few minutes before halftime, I should say, Stu noted that the defensive intensity during this game for the Lakers had begun to wane. It was right around the time where somebody named Micah Peavy scored, hit back-to-back.
NBA professional Micah Peavy. Come on now.
Hit back-to-back three. He's a rookie. He's not supposed to be logging huge minutes for a full-strength Pelican squad, or maybe even a half-strength Pelican squad. This Pelican squad, by the way, was missing so many people. They may need to bring in recently fired coach Willie Green as a player just to try to fill out the roster because it's gotten so bad. But the defensive intensity was waning as the second half continued. The third quarter, the Pelicans clearly came out with far greater energy. I want to say they opened on a 7-0 run. The Lakers were putting up a lot of either settling for or going for knockout punch threes that A, were not going down, and B, it's way too early to try knocking out a team.
I don't even think they were knockout punch threes. I think they were lazy threes.
Well, regardless. Well, they might have been.
You said, one or the other. To me, that it was just lazy offense to me.
Well, here's the thing, though. They can be both. The desire to be lazy can be connected to the desire to knock them out. So hopefully you can get off the court because you know the lead is up so high because you've been bearing these lazy settled threes. Like there can be a connection. The knockout punch doesn't necessarily have to be related to killer instinct because, let me be honest, there was none from.
Yeah, it's not how I read that, but we don't need to get into the semantics of a knockout punch. I think their defense in the second half. It should be noted. Look, I mean, again, they went up by 20 in the first quarter. They never let the lead get into single digits. They never gave New Orleans a real reason to think they were going to win the game. But I certainly agree with you that they completely miscalculated the idea that a team full essentially of rookies and hangers-on was going to pack it in at halftime of this game. There were good individual performances from the Lakers. Luka, obviously 34 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists. Austin Reaves, a very, very efficient night He finished with 33 points on 9 of 15 shooting, 4 of 7 from 3-point range. Deandre Ayton.
He did have 5 turnovers. I thought Austin was
he was sloppy. He was part of the sloppiness, I think, in the second half, especially. But, Ayton was 7 of 9, 22 points, 12 rebounds, 4 block shots.
I thought Deandre was very good in this game.
He was excellent. And, it's just to me, the third quarter, by should we note, and we'll talk about this. LeBron didn't play. There are some clues about how they will sort of approach back-to-backs over the course of the season. But he did not play in the front end, which makes sense with the bigger game coming up Monday night against Phoenix. And the plan certainly seems to be, at least in the near term, that he is not going to play both sides of the back-to-back. So if trying to catch a game with LeBron in it, and it's up against the back-to-back, keep an eye on the news wires.
Marcus Smart also didn't play too.
Marcus Smart didn't play either. That from injury, not from maintenance. Sure. I just think they got so lazy in the third quarter with their offense, and they just sort of sat there and the ball didn't go in, and they just kind of watch it going, how'd that ball not go in? And they stopped playing defense. The intensity dropped off in a big way. They knew this is one of those games where, as an NBA team, like the thing that brothers do where, the little brother's swinging and they just put your hand on their head and they're not going to hit you. But, that's really what the Lakers did in this, is they just put out the minimal effort in the second half. And it's a shame because this could have been a game where Reaves and Luka sat the entire fourth quarter.
And also, too, even if you aren't concerned about the battle of attrition between tonight's game and Monday's versus Phoenix, which we both expect will be a more difficult game. I know both you and I care about that stuff, and we believe that minutes add up, not just over the course of the season, but they add up game to game. But even if you're not concerned about that, the Lakers lost an opportunity to just tune up what they want to do well against the Suns and just big picture build and stack good habits, build and stack good sets, all of that stuff. Like JJ talked about after the game that, from a process standpoint, he was not happy with what they did from basically second through fourth quarter. He noted that New Orleans was throwing out a lot of junk defenses that affected, I think, the way that they were looking to or not looking to execute, and also at times just growing sick of the whole thing and bored and all of that stuff. But, they're 15-4, which JJ stressed. This is really good.
Second seed in the West.
Right. They are off to a fantastic start. And, while I don't know if I would put them as an inner circle contending team because there just are issues that they have on paper, they're clearly playing very well. They should be taken seriously. They should be very happy with the way things are going. But JJ said that there are a lot of pizza slices left in the metaphorical pizza box. You could phrase it as a lot of meat left on the bone, a lot of potential, however you want to put it. But I think one of the reasons he brought this up is the idea of wanting to avoid a sense of satisfaction with where they are almost a quarter of the way into the season. And they are ahead of all of the punditry expectations, including, by the way, the pundits hosting this show. You and I both thought that they would be good. Neither one of us thought that they would be 11 games over 500 heading into
through 16.
Game.
Yeah. I didn't. It's like a 60-win pace. I didn't have them winning 60 plus games.
Right. Exactly. So
look, the challenge, as Redick said, going into this game on Sunday, it was they reminded them of the Atlanta game. Like, hey, not a great team. Atlanta is certainly a much better team than New Orleans is. When everybody's healthy and even when they're not. But Atlanta was missing all of their frontline players, and this New Orleans team, which isn't good even when everybody's playing, was missing Trey Murphy. They were missing Zion. They were missing Herb Jones. I'm forgetting.
Jordan Poole.
Jordan Poole
Basically, everybody that you've heard of, unless you paid a lot of attention to college basketball last year and therefore were watching this year's rookies for the Pelicans.
Right. It was their starting lineup. Their starting lineup on Sunday was Sadiq Bey, who was, a veteran, at this point, kind of a journeyman veteran. Bryce McGowan, so I think is in his second year or third year.
He's a deep cut.
Yeah. Yves Missi, second-year player, Jeremiah Fears, and Derek Queen, both rookies. You mentioned Peavy. Alexander, I think, is another rookie who played for them. So, Fears and Queen both look like they're going to be good players.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they're not great yet. And so
certainly not great enough to bring about wins.
No. And so the challenge from the coaching staff was don't repeat what happened in Atlanta. And the Lakers kept, very quickly made sure that wasn't going to happen. After the break, let's talk a little bit more about, kind of what this game looked like, get into a little bit of the clues about LeBron, and then also get to set up what is turning into a very important game in a bunch of levels Monday night against Phoenix. We'll do that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Prize Picks, and the holiday season is one of the best times for sports. You got bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes, all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and then you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states, including California, yay, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Creating a lineup takes less than a minute, and the app makes the whole process smooth and intuitive. You can choose from a huge range of unique stats, fantasy scores, field goals attempted, free throws made, turnovers, whatever works for your strategy. Deposits and withdrawals are quick and easy, which keeps everything flowing. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it is good to be right.
So look, I mean, I look at this game Sunday night as kind of think of it as college. If this is a pass-fail course, the Lakers certainly passed. If it was a graded course, they wouldn't get an A. They needed the most important thing is they passed. They didn't. Luka played. This could have been a game where Luka played. How many minutes did he end up playing?
35.
35. It could have certainly been 28 or 29. That said, part of the reason that the game was the way it was, I don't think he was putting out, he wasn't in sixth gear in this game, so not all minutes are created equal. And I don't think Luka wore himself out, significantly in this one. It's just like you said, it's habit building. And, there's never a downside to playing well. And I'm not going to freak out over this one by any stretch. It was sort of an annoying to watch, but it wasn't like a big deal.
Well, I mean, I'm also not going to freak out about it. And if anybody is mistaking my tone, and I think your tone, for upset about the game, neither one of us is upset, but we're also not going to play it up into a more impressive feat than it actually was. And like you mentioned, Luka perhaps not getting the opportunity to play fewer minutes, to whatever degree that matters. DeAndre Ayton, for example, he knocked knees in this game with Derek Queen, same knee that he's had that contusion. He ended up leaving the game. He didn't re-enter. He ultimately didn't have to, but these are things that can happen. And I'm not saying it happened directly in this game because of the Lakers' collective attitude. Ayton was playing at a moment where he might have been playing anyway. The point is, these opportunities present themselves the more you're on the floor.
When Luka can't get hurt, Andy?
When he's on the bench.
Correct.
One of the things I was thinking about too is this to me felt like a game where they missed Marcus Smart, like specifically, just not solely because of the defensive lapses that began to build in the second quarter and then onward, or those certainly I think Marcus would have helped there, but just the overall intensity and just the overall focus and the overall let's effing go, like we are not letting up. And that's something Marcus Smart does. Like even in games where he's not playing well, he always does it. Like I was thinking about, this was the type of game, and I'm not being critical that JJ didn't do this because I'm not saying it should have necessarily even occurred to him. It's just something I would have maybe liked to see, or in future games if, say, Marcus Smart is dealing with back spasms again, because this is now at least the second time off the top of my head I can think of that second occasion, I think third game, where he's missed because of back issues. I wouldn't mind 5 minutes of Vando. I'm not talking about 15 or 20. I'm talking about just like 5 minutes of raising the energy, bringing up everybody back to a certain focus, a certain level of urgency, and then he can sit again. Like it reminds me a bit of in the 2001 finals, there was a game where the Lakers were really out of sorts against the Sixers. I don't remember exactly what happened, but Phil Jackson put Ron Harper into the game. And Ron Harper at this stage of his career, I believe this was his last year in the NBA, he was barely playing. Like he was a deep reserve for this team. And I remember watching this going like, Ron Harper? Like, really? Harper played for like 7 minutes in this game, completely settled everything down, got a couple baskets, then Phil sat him, and he didn't play for the rest of the series. But those like 7 minutes, he had a very specific thing to do, and he did it, and that's what was needed in that game. I would like to see JJ consider the idea of if the team is lacking a certain urgency, and particularly if Marcus is not available, give Vando like 5 minutes, just for that specific purpose. I'm not talking about a rotation.
Vando is a DNP CD for people who may have not seen the box.
Deuce Thero got minutes ahead of Vando tonight.
Yeah, played 2 minutes, 2 and 52. And I think in part just to get him a little bit of floor time,
Sure.
but also to get a little bit of that energy, that little defensive intensity. It's pretty clear. If it wasn't before, it's pretty clear JJ doesn't really have a lot of faith in where Vanderbilt fits into a rotation here. And I don't disagree. I mean, I find myself going through this cycle kind of every year of like Vando hope and then becoming a little bit, just like, this just doesn't, like the idea of Jared Vanderbilt tends to always be better than the results over time. But this was the type of night where that type of infusion of energy for 4 minutes in the second half could have just raised the collective level a little bit.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I am not looking.
Jackson Hayes was sort of providing that and playing with that, but they could have used one more guy.
Right, exactly. I'm not looking to. I've made my thoughts clear over the years that I see a role for Vando. JJ disagreed. Like, fine, whatever. I'm not looking to resuscitate that debate. I'm just saying for something like this, especially with Marcus not available and Jackson can only play so many minutes, I think that could have been interesting. But regardless, it's really up to these guys to raise their own energy. They shouldn't have to rely on Jared Vanderbilt in the first place.
That is true. Quick word here on LeBron. Like I'm not surprised both that he's not playing back-to-backs yet. I think that's smart. And I'm not surprised that they sat him on this side of the back-to-back, both to get him one more day in between games, but also if you're going to people, everydayers may have heard me talk about, like, I'm a big believer, make sure you win the game that is the quote unquote easy of a back-to-back or something like that. Phoenix isn't quite a scheduled loss. So it's different if they be turning around and going to Denver or Oklahoma City on the second or whatever, where a loss is just more likely based on X, Y, or Z regular factors.
This one's a little different, but especially given who New Orleans was, they didn't need LeBron to win this game, as it was abundantly clear in the first quarter. So it made perfect sense to sit him in this one. And I also, though, I think it says a lot about where the team is, the confidence that they have as a group in where they are in the Austin Reaves, Austin Reaves, Luka Doncic pairing, that there is no urgency to push LeBron any harder than needs to be, just to kind of keep him on a comfort. It's a little like the way that the Thunder have been treating Jalen Williams with that wrist injury. It's like, if they were struggling a little bit, could he have come back 3 or 4 games faster than he did? I bet he could have. But when they're blowing teams out by 15 every night, you can sit him as long as you want. It's slightly different because the Lakers obviously aren't in first place, but their success allows them to treat LeBron carefully so that they can maximize the ability to have him in the spring when they really will need him to make a long run.
There's one more piece of this too that I would imagine is a factor with how this gets approached with LeBron. So we can get into that, and also what you wanted to talk about with this game against Phoenix Monday night being extremely important. So we'll get into all that coming up next. Locked on Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. And that's what makes live betting with FanDuel exciting. You're not just watching games, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, defenses tighten up, momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly, player props that update as guys heat up. Like, just every single possibility is right in front of you, and it keeps you locked into every snap and every drive. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com, place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. One last piece with LeBron and the management of him this season, and the front end of the back-to-back, not playing back end. We don't know for sure, but both of us, I think, are presuming he will play Monday versus Phoenix.
There's no indication that he won't.
Right. Unless, it being left foot injury maintenance, that's what it was listed as. LeBron has had persistent feet issues in his time with the Lakers. So that's the only reason that this could be about more than just scheduling out back-to-backs for a guy pushing 41 years old. But until we hear otherwise, I'm presuming this is simply about trying to get LeBron through the season. I imagine, too, that LeBron missing the opening 14 games takes away some of the questions with how to do this, because in all likelihood, he's going to be ineligible for awards. Like, he now has 2 more games for the rest of the season that he can miss before he becomes ineligible. He's now missed, I believe, 15 games. So he's got very, very little wiggle room at this point. And while that may be disappointing for LeBron, obviously I understand this. He likes to make history as he keeps playing in the league, and making an all-NBA team as a 41-year-old would be rightly
historic.
Yeah, I mean, it would be rightly a pretty jaw-dropping historical feat. But at this, we are just now entering December, and that is in all likelihood, in any realistic fashion, off the table, which again may be disappointing for LeBron, but it makes this process, I think, more pragmatic in ways that for whatever now you need to do with LeBron, it becomes easier because in all likelihood that's off the table. Plus,
yeah, it's just one less thing. You don't have to worry about, wait a minute, if we sit him for this game, he can't make all NBA, which even if LeBron's like, it's not like, you don't want to take that away from a player. Like,
right.
Even if they say it's okay, don't worry about it. Like, as an organization, you always want to make sure your players have the opportunity to be honored in that way. Side note, and then we'll get to the Phoenix thing. I do wonder if the NBA is going to look at those rules this year based on how many players are going to be ineligible for stuff this year, because the all NBA teams, the MVP voting, all these, they're just weird dudes. Because they're going to be like 8 guys in the league who play the required amount of games.
The reason that they came up with this 65 game threshold to begin with was it was supposed to be an incentive structure for trying to offset what was seen as rampant, quote unquote, load management and trying to get guys on the floor more often. And what I think they're learning is, if guys were just sitting because they wanted to sit, it ain't de-incentivizing at all. And B, what I think has actually been happening, guys are actually not playing because they're having trouble staying healthy. And that's actually the issue.
That's been the issue most of the time.
Yes.
Save a few players for whom, legitimate injury, man, like Joel Embiid, cannot play every game. He cannot. Right. And so, if you want him to be available for half the games, then he has to sit the other. He just can't play. But we'll see how that goes. It's obviously a conversation for the offseason. I look at, this game Monday night is really critical for a couple of reasons. The first one is sort of logistical. After this game, the Lakers hit the road for a while. They basically are gone until Christmas, basically. They do have one game in Los Angeles on December 20th against the Clippers. But then they don't play another game at the Crypt until Christmas. The trip starts with the not that surprising to me, but surprising to some, Raptors, then the Celtics, who are always hard to play and are over 500 despite missing Jason Tatum. The Sixers, who are also over 500, and Lord knows who you're going to see in that any given night. Then you get the Spurs for the Cup quarterfinal. Actually, that will be in LA. I forgot that part of the schedule has been built in. But then you go they see some 4 really tough games in a row. So that's one thing. The other thing about this is I look at the goals of the season. Step 1, make sure you're not in the play-in, and to that extent, the Lakers, as the 2 seed right now, are facing the current 7 seed Monday night in the Phoenix Suns. The Lakers are already, and this is sort of surprising given what we expected in the West, they're already 5 games up on Phoenix in the loss column. If they win this game, they go up 6 games in the loss column to the team currently. And that's not insurmountable. You can fall that far, but that's a pretty big gap this early in the season. And so you can get a long way towards solidifying step 1 of, make sure you're not in the play-in pretty early by winning this game. It's really important.
I mean, you look at a team like Golden State and how much they are struggling to keep guys on the court. They're in this weird place where their 3 foundational players are all in the later stage of their career. And as great as Steph still can be when he's healthy, it's getting harder to keep him out there. You obviously, similar to LeBron, there are considerations with how you try to keep him whole for an entire season. And when Steph isn't there, Draymond and Jimmy Butler start becoming much more ordinary as players, in terms of how much they can actually lift a team. The Lakers and Warriors were expected to be, by most people heading in this season, roughly at the same tier. Mm-hmm. And the Lakers are already...
They were last year.
Right. And the Lakers are already building up a huge, huge lead over a team like the Warriors. As you noted, there is still time for these things to even out, for the Lakers knock on wood, it doesn't happen, to deal with more extreme injuries of their own, although they have missed. They've had guys out for a lot of the lineup, a lot of the year. Sure. But you are correct. Like this, the more distance you can build on all of the teams chasing you, even in December, it all adds up after a while.
It sure does. By the way, step 2, secure a home court in the first round. Step 3, if you can get there, I would be the number 1 seed. That's not going to happen. So number 2, I'm punting on the number 1 seed thing.
Well, okay, you mentioned OKC really quick when we were talking about the urgency and maintaining that over the course of the season, even when you're playing, a zombie Pelicans squad. The Thunder, if any team had a reason to feel like they can just mail in the season and we know we're better than everyone else, it would be OKC. And they go out there with the very clear desire to kick the bleep out of everybody they play.
They're also 11.
Sure.
They're like puppies.
Right.
But also too, and like they have their role players are all so good. Like the guys, the mistake, part of the mistake the Lakers made, for example, in this game on Sunday night is like, yeah, they're not very good, but rookies, generally speaking, especially guys who aren't really well established, the McGowans and players, PV and players like that are always going to play hard. And they're not going to quit on games. And so Oklahoma City's like 8th and 9th and 10th guys are conditioned to be 8th, 9th, 10th guys, except normal teams, they'd be better than other Jalen Williams. I like every time he gets the chance to like really play meaningful minutes for the Thunder, he puts up like a triple-double. It's absurd. I think one thing that is really clear is that, there's sort of a top 6 that seems to be forming in the West. OKC, Lakers, Rockets, Nuggets, Spurs, Wolves. And then the depth that I think we all feared for the conference is just not materializing. The bottom is obviously dropped out completely from the Clippers. They're 5-15. The bottom is dropped out from the Mavericks. They're 6-15. Maybe you weren't a Mavericks believer. 6-15 is pretty bad.
And I was not.
No, you're not. But you didn't think they'd be 6-15.
No. But I thought the people talking about them as potentially sneaking into the top 6 or getting into the playoffs, I was
Kendrick Perkins as sneaky title contenders. Like, slow down.
I was just like, why? I don't understand why.
But Memphis is clearly not gonna, they're not surely what they thought they could be. Portland's been beat up a little bit, but a leap for Portland is going from kind of bad to around 500, and they still could end up there. But there's not 12 or 13 really good teams, 10 really good teams right now in the West, and so it's going to make it like the best teams will stay fresher. Those games will get harder. But that idea of like staying a top 6 team in the West, much more doable than it seemed like at the beginning of the season. Earning a top 4 seed, much more doable than it seemed like at the beginning of the season. Health, all that stuff, knock on wood. So it's going to be a different conference this year than I think people expected, which obviously benefits the Lakers. It's not as much fun if you're a basketball fan, but it certainly benefits the Lakers.
And that's all we care about.
Yep, pretty much. Portland being good is interesting. It's doesn't do anything for me.
I mean, look, if you're asking me, do I enjoy when the NBA is at its most competitive from top to bottom? Yes, I do. But if you're asking me, would I rather have the NBA most competitive top to bottom or the Lakers kicking ass if I can only have one or the other, I'm taking option B. Thank you very much.
Right.
Screw all the have-nots, man.
Who's got 2 thumbs and is picking option B? This guy.
4 thumbs.
That's 4 thumbs altogether. So Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 37,000 subscribers to the channel. Of course, we will be back after Monday, what should be a very competitive game. Lakers playing a surprisingly spry Phoenix squad that
people did not have very high hopes for. We just went over why it is so important. Hopefully we'll be back after the game talking about a win. See you then.